It looked like the WNBA saga, the little run that they had, is now over. As major networks could be pulling segments from the broadcast and this current CBA agreement is heating up, this is all what the owners wanted.
The WNBA has just been rocked by a bombshell that threatens to shake the league to its core. ESPN and Fox Sports, two of the biggest powerhouses in sports media, are reportedly pulling back their coverage, and the timing couldn't be more damaging.
Think about ESPN, Fox, other sports networks. Everybody has took away WNBA segment.
With Caitlin Clark sidelined, the very player who delivered the league its greatest ratings surge in decades, the spotlight has dimmed almost overnight. What once looked like a thriving new era for women's basketball now appears to be collapsing under its own pressure. Fans who tuned in for Clark's electrifying style of play have tuned out, leaving networks to wonder if the hype was ever sustainable.
The ratings go down. What happened when the ratings go down? They're back in a sunken place, bro. And guess what happens when they go back in a sunken place? They're not getting no big-time paydays.
For a league already battling pay disputes, declining ticket sales, and endless controversy, this latest decision feels like a crushing blow. But the real issue isn't just why ESPN and Fox backed away. It's what this move signals for the future of the WNBA itself.
Y'all ain't finna get no $1 million contracts. Guess what's gonna happen to the CBA agreement? It's gonna stay the same. You're not getting no extra money. The ratings has dropped 80%. That's what they're gonna say. You know, they're gonna be looking through this. Hey, you know what? The ratings are just, I'm sorry. So all of that momentum that you guys had about a year and a half ago, it's over. It's over.
When ESPN and Fox Sports quietly but deliberately reduced coverage of the WNBA, it wasn't just a minor programming tweak, it was a statement. These networks live off ratings and storylines that keep advertisers invested and audiences glued. For the past year, Caitlin Clark was that storyline. Every highlight, every press conference, every record-breaking moment brought unprecedented attention to a league long desperate for mainstream recognition.
I'll say a little conspiracy with keeping Caitlin Clark out, with them playing a factor in her not being there to keep the CBA agreements and pull away the interest from the league. I believe this is a planned attack by the WNBA owners, commissioners, to pull the interest away from the league.
Some believe this was a calculated tactic by WNBA owners and commissioners to steer attention away from the league. But once Clark was sidelined with injury, momentum collapsed, and networks began re-evaluating whether the investment was still worth it. The hard reality is clear. Networks don't run on loyalty, they run on numbers. When Clark was on the court, ratings skyrocketed, merchandise sold out, and social media buzzed non-stop. Without her, those metrics collapsed. The so-called Clark effect was real, maybe too real. Instead of strengthening the league, her presence exposed just how dependent the WNBA had become on one player.
This has been a joke, and the WNBA has, in my view, blown its opportunity.
When she was sidelined, it wasn't only the Indiana Fever that suffered, it was the entire league. Fans noticed instantly. Games that once trended across social media barely made a ripple. Primetime slots shrank. Highlights disappeared from nightly sports shows. ESPN executives studied the data and knew exactly what it meant. Advertisers wouldn't pay premium rates for games nobody was watching. Fox Sports, notoriously ruthless in programming decisions, reportedly reached the same conclusion. Why give valuable airtime to a product that can't survive without Clark?
To get these set paydays that they garner and they want, bro. In order to do that, you have to have a consistent track record of good ratings, consistent track records of merchandise sales, ticket sales, and all of these things. And I'm telling you right now, next year is going to be a tough year.
What makes this decline even more painful is how public it has become. Just a season ago, the narrative was that the WNBA had finally arrived. Articles proclaimed a golden era. Salary debates surged, and players demanded recognition and compensation closer to the NBA. Now, all that momentum has been erased by a single injury. It's unfair to Clark, and it's unfair to the veterans who carried the game for decades before her. But the networks have spoken through their actions. No Clark, no coverage. Frustration has turned into anger inside the league. Players who wanted to prove the sport was bigger than one star now see how fragile the foundation is. Owners and executives can spin it however they want, but when the two biggest sports networks essentially pull the plug, it's a message the hype train has derailed. And for a league trying to renegotiate its CBA and push for higher salaries, the timing is catastrophic.
How many times have you watched WNBA games since Caitlin Clark got hurt? Now think about this. It led our show last summer.
A bunch.
Oh, I think I led with it 6 times. I led with the WNBA. And either way, I talk about what I think is interesting. You notice I didn't talk about it this year?
Yeah.
It's not because I suddenly disliked the league. I thought it was growing. Anybody that wants to argue this, you're off your rocker. Caitlin Clark is the league.
And yet, the most telling part isn't simply that ESPN and Fox stepped away. It's how quickly they did so, without hesitation. Almost as if they were waiting for the perfect excuse. But the fallout doesn't stop here, because the withdrawal of these networks has now opened the floodgates for critics to tear into the league even harder.
I don't know what the ratings are. I haven't read them, but I know last year with Caitlin Clark, I would, if the game was on, I would drive home making a point. Hey, when's that game on?
I would watch it on my phone in the car. So you could listen, not watch, I'm driving, but you could listen to it in the car.
The decision by ESPN and Fox Sports to scale back coverage didn't come out of nowhere. It was the natural result of months of pressure building, and Caitlin Clark's injury became the spark that set it all in motion. To see why the media giants acted so fast, you have to study the numbers. The WNBA was riding its biggest wave in decades when Clark entered the league. Her college stardom carried perfectly into the pros, fueling unprecedented hype. Ratings soared, arenas sold out, and merchandise demand exploded. For the first time in years, mainstream outlets consistently featured WNBA highlights. But it didn't take long before networks noticed a problem. The ratings weren't evenly spread. They revolved almost entirely around Clark's games. When she went down, the entire system collapsed overnight. National broadcasts that once drew strong audiences dropped to historic lows. Local ticket sales froze, and trending headlines disappeared. For ESPN and Fox, this wasn't just a setback, it was a liability. Networks survive on consistency, and the WNBA's entire momentum was tied to one thread. When that thread snapped, the product no longer made sense financially. Advertisers who had invested heavily in Clark's rookie season suddenly backed off, unwilling to pay for games that couldn't deliver. That's where the controversy deepened. The pullback wasn't quiet, it was decisive. Pre-game shows were cut, highlight reels reduced, and debate segments that once revolved around Clark simply vanished. Fans noticed instantly, and players felt the blow even harder. For athletes who had fought to elevate visibility, it was a harsh reminder that their stage wasn't strong enough without a single superstar. Critics argue the league created this mess itself. By putting so much weight on Clark, the WNBA turned her into both savior and scapegoat. Networks don't trade in loyalty, they trade in profit. When the numbers dipped, they didn't hesitate to move on. Some insiders claim ESPN and Fox had been looking for an exit anyway, pointing to long-standing disputes over rights and scheduling. Clark's absence gave them the perfect excuse. For players, the damage goes deeper than TV slots. It's about bargaining power. Heading into crucial CBA negotiations, athletes hoped strong ratings would prove their worth and secure better pay. Without coverage, that leverage disappeared. Once networks walk away, getting them back is nearly impossible. Sports media thrives on momentum, and the WNBA has hit a wall. Yet the story goes beyond TV. Owners themselves may have seen this collapse coming, and used it to their benefit. Behind the headlines lies the looming CBA fight. Insiders suggest ownership had been bracing for tough talks, and Clark's injury handed them leverage. With the deal expiring, players wanted higher salaries, stronger benefits, and more promotion. Their case was simple. Clark's star power proved the league's value. But when ESPN and Fox stepped back, that case fell apart. Owners suddenly held the upper hand. Instead of being pressured into million-dollar contracts, they could point to ratings collapse as justification to hold the line. Some believe this wasn't chance but calculation. By letting Clark's hype fade and neglecting to build others, owners created a crisis that benefits them in negotiations. A weak league means weaker demands. It's a cynical strategy, but not new. Shrink the pie first, then fight over the slices. Signs of this are already visible. Rivalries beyond Clark received almost no push. Marketing campaigns dried up after her injury. Even the Indiana Fever, her own franchise, have been accused of mishandling her rise. Critics say their decisions didn't match the urgency of her stardom. From overuse to lack of protection, questions swirled about whether her injury could have been avoided. Some conspiracy theories even claim the Fever and league executives quietly accepted her absence to lower expectations before bargaining. Extreme or not, the timing raises doubts. Meanwhile, Clark's absence highlighted an uncomfortable truth. No one else could match her drawing power. Angel Reese and Aya Wilson don't attract the same mainstream attention, and off-court controversies only made things worse. Instead of rising to the moment, stars became mired in drama, reinforcing the belief that the league can't manage success. For Indiana, the consequences have been brutal. Once expected to carry the WNBA forward, they're now seen as part of the problem. Media critics wasted no time piling on. Jason Whitlock blasted the league as arrogant and blind to the fact that Clark was its only true driver. He singled out Angel Reese for immaturity, criticized Diana Taurasi for losing her edge, and mocked Sophie Cunningham for relying on antics rather than production. Colin Cowherd drew an even starker comparison. Just as golf collapsed when Tiger Woods was sidelined, he argued the WNBA collapses without Clark. His take was blunt: no Clark, no league. Fans were split, some angry, others reluctantly agreeing. But the fallout was undeniable. Ratings plummeted, merchandise piled up unsold, and attendance dropped. The Clark effect wasn't a myth, it was a harsh reality. For players demanding pay raises, the timing could not be worse. Owners now hold every advantage, armed with proof the league can't stand without one star. A lockout looms if the CBA talks break down, and the 2026 season could be lost. That would cripple a league still struggling for relevance. Fans may drift permanently, and sponsors may not return. Worse still is the perception problem. Casual viewers now see the WNBA as fragile, dependent, and directionless. League leaders face a defining choice: rebuild entirely around Clark or spread the spotlight and risk losing what little traction remains. Either path is dangerous, but both will decide the league's future. What's certain is this: ESPN and Fox Sports stepping back was just the beginning. The cracks had been there all along. Clark's injury only revealed them, and now every weakness is exposed for the world to see.